Of all the things you can rightly make fun of the Missouri athletic department for, I don't think spending money on a search firm is one of them. Plus another 4-star edge player from the high school ranks. Let's talk about all of it and more on Locked On Mizzou.
You are Locked On Mizzou, your daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, I'm John Miller, your Mizzou mafioso and the central scrutinizer of Missouri Tigers football and basketball. On today's program, I want to talk about Jason Dowell from Belleville, Illinois, committing to the Missouri Tiger football team, I should say, and also Jordan Butler finding a new home back in his old home at South Carolina. First, I want to remind you that these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. And according to Pete Thamel, Missouri does have a new athletic director. It is Memphis's Laird Veatch, who is being targeted to be the school's next athletic director. Several sources around the Missouri beat have confirmed this report as well. Veatch has been at Memphis since October of 2019 and brings SEC experience from his time at the University of Florida from 2017 to 2019 when he was an executive associate AD. Was a player at Kansas State, actually a captain with Kansas State football, worked in athletics from 2010 to 2017. I'll be honest, just the fact that Brett Veatch has experience working up close and personal with Bill Snyder kind of gets me a little bit excited. I don't know, maybe I'm looking too much into this. I'm not exactly an expert at behind-the-scenes machinations at the athletic department, but to me, anybody who's rubbed up enough with one of the great football coaches of all time and Bill Snyder, in my opinion, that's a good thing. Right now, we want, and obviously any school, but especially Missouri right now at this moment, wants an athletic director who is pro football. So Brett Veatch, a guy, did I just say Brett Veatch? I mean Laird Veatch. Brett Veatch is the general manager for the Kansas City Chiefs, excuse me. No, Laird Veatch. This is the type of football-centric mind that I think should mesh with Eli Drinkwitz pretty well. And obviously, it's safe to say that this hire was met with Eli Drinkwitz approval. Again, worked at Mizzou from 97 to 2002. Experience among all stops is compelling to Missouri officials. That quote there from Pete Thamel. And from my perspective, I just like number two. Not only does he seem like a football-centric guy, number one, number two, by all accounts, he's a guy that really, really wanted this job from day one. It's not as though this is somebody that Missouri had to come begging and screaming or come up with some massive offer package in order to lure this person away. In fact, I think this is, for Laird Veatch, this is as much of a dream job as it could possibly be, I think, at this point for anybody else that's out there. Now, one takeaway I've seen really early here, actually, I believe it was Gabe DeArmond over at Power Mizzou. His initial commentary here was basically saying, now, wait a second, why did it cost Missouri's athletic department $125,000 on a search firm to find Laird Veatch? When Power Mizzou, that was basically the first name that Gabe and his staff brought up. Many others, basically everybody else with a pulse on the Missouri staff who analyzes this type of stuff, brought up Laird Veatch. So why spend $125,000 on it? Maybe even more to the point, why take 9 weeks to come up with this name here? Well, these are all fair questions, but I will say a little bit of that is easy to say in hindsight, because to me, if you're going to spend $125,000, a fairly paltry amount of money, all in all in the annual Missouri athletic budget, to me, it's okay. If you're going to come back to maybe the guy you were leaning toward at first, if it costs you $125,000 to do your due diligence and look at some other candidates. Just make sure there isn't somebody else out there that you're missing, whatever it might be. That doesn't seem like that crazy of an amount of money to me. And frankly, for Gabe DeArmond, who has also said that on the Desiree Reed Francois buyout, which people at Arizona say, hey, we expect her to try to get some of it back. Well, Gabe has basically said, hey, that $1 million plus whatever it is, 1.25, something like that. I can't remember exactly what the buyout is, but it's certainly a significant amount of money. It's way more significant than $125K. So to me, under the terms of her contract, she owes this money. So to just hand wave that $1 million, I thought that was a bit strange. That idea to just say, oh, just pay her to go away, and then meanwhile make a big deal about spending $125K on a search firm. Listen, if we're going to talk generally here about the value of search firms, that's one thing. I'm just basically saying here, of all the things to make fun of and question at the Missouri Athletic Department and the powers that be over the last couple decades, to me, the $125K on the search firm doesn't really seem like one of them to me. I'm not going to be wringing my hands too much about that. And by the way, I'm still somebody that says, as much as I like DRF and a lot of the things she did at her time at Missouri, when it comes to that buyout, DRF, we going to need that money. Now, when it comes to the actual football field, of course, plenty of happening in recruiting right now. Missouri continues to build momentum on the 2025 high school class, one that I believe is going to end up as the highest ranked one in at least the internet era of high school football rankings. Jason Dowell from Bellevue, Illinois. He's a defensive lineman, edge rusher, more than likely, listed though 6'4", 285 pounds, very athletic for that size, but really Dowell's an interesting athlete for sure, and just kind of a great example of why recruiting is so difficult. The type of guy, again, with those measurables, with his athleticism, you'd think, well, he's a sure thing, right? But there's a really big gap in terms of his analysis here, his evaluation. Rivals.com has him as a 4-star player, the 24th best defensive lineman in the country. Well, On3 has him all the way down at 53rd. So which do you believe? Well, some days we like On3 better. Some days we like Rivals better. Probably depends on how they're viewing Missouri guys. But other good Big Ten offers like Indiana, Illinois, and Iowa were the 3 runners up here, at least according to the prediction machine over there at On3. So obviously a lot of interest in that young man from Belleville, just across the Mississippi River there. So another interesting prospect for Missouri, but again, just a tough guy to evaluate because at Belleville, you're not exactly playing the highest caliber of high school offensive linemen in the country. And even the highest level of offensive linemen, well, they're still 18-year-olds, right? It's tough to really get a full grasp of just how good these guys are. As I've said many times, in high school, guys like Dowell are going to pop off, and you can tell who the college guys are. That's pretty easy. The guys who are capable of at least getting to that level. The problem is it's really hard to figure out who's going to stand out at that level because so often you look at Dowell's film, for instance, and he's just blowing past guys. It's not like there's a lot of subtlety in his movements there. So, again, great pickup for Eli Drinkwitz and his staff for the high school ranks, and a lot of other guys could be being announced today as well, including 4-star outside linebacker Dante McClellan from Canton, Ohio. Also Joshua Lewis, another edge rusher from Gonzales, Louisiana. These are both trending Missouri's way. Also offensive lineman Marcus Bryant as well. This guy's in the transfer portal. He's maybe even a more interesting prospect because he could actually play in 2024, quite possibly, at 6'8", 318 pounds from SMU. Again, Marcus Bryant, a guy who could possibly play tackle. Caden Green, as I've said all offseason, the transfer from Oklahoma. slotted to play left tackle, played that in the spring game, but as I've said all along, he played the vast majority of his snaps at left guard for Oklahoma last year, so he has some flexibility there if Missouri can add another impact offensive lineman in the portal. Man, this offense could really, really take an even bigger step forward to being one of the top 5 or 10 units in all of college football this season. And former Missouri forward center Jordan Butler has found a new home at his old stomping grounds, this time in Columbia, South Carolina, with the Gamecocks. Let's talk about what this move means for Missouri moving forward. But first, I want to remind all of you that when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. Because LinkedIn Jobs isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, more than 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or the resources to hire. Well, that's exactly where LinkedIn steps in, because you might be an expert in your field. Well, you may not be an expert in hiring. It's exactly why you have to trust LinkedIn. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. The Locked On NFL Mock Draft is available now. Find the ultimate 6-episode series on Locked On NFL Draft to hear who the local Locked On experts are picking for every NFL franchise, with live reactions from local college football experts and even the fantasy football angle. The Locked On NFL Mock Draft, now available on Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. And you know what? Speaking of the NFL Draft, this is probably a good moment to acknowledge the passing of a member of the Missouri family. In fact, a member of the Mizzou Intercollegiate Athletics Hall of Fame, Bill Tobin, who lettered at Mizzou from 1960 to 1962. This is according to Dave Matter over on X.com. Later spent 4 decades in the NFL as a coach and executive. As the Indianapolis Colts general manager, Bill Tobin drafted Marshall Faulk and Marvin Harrison, also delivered one of the most famous lines in NFL draft history: "Who the hell is Mel Kiper?" Bill's brother, Vince, also a Mizzou Hall of Famer and longtime NFL coach, died in 2023. So, of course, condolences out to the entire Tobin family there, but just wanted to acknowledge that great Missouri Tiger and True Son's life there. But let's move on here to the basketball court for just a little bit. Jordan Butler, Missouri center, true freshman last season, ended up playing probably quite a bit more than I think Missouri would have liked. I think Missouri wanted Connor Vanover, obviously, to take a lot of the minutes that Jordan Butler ended up taking. I don't want to get too into a Connor Vanover debate at this point because, frankly, no offense to him, who cares? The Connor Vanover era is done here at Missouri. So, as strongly expected here, though, Butler moving on and ended up as a South Carolina Gamecock. The young man, originally from South Carolina, ends up as a Gamecock. You know what I thought? Honestly, good for Jordan Butler. I'm kind of happy for him, to be honest, because, like I said, a guy who was really thrown into the fire last season before he was ready. Quite honestly, the conventional wisdom that it was going to take Butler a while to develop, to become what he was going to ultimately become. So to me, I'm kind of happy for him that he wasn't judged overly harshly after one season in the SEC, like, oh, well, he just can't do it. Throw him into the dustbin of history, if you will. good for him, landing in a spot where he considered South Carolina pretty strongly in the recruiting process. So I'm kind of happy for the young man that he ended up in a pretty good landing spot. Now, the other question is, I assumed is maybe a strong word. I guess what I've been saying the whole time is it's the way this roster has been playing out. It's hard to see Jordan Butler and Trent Pierce both being on the team next year. So what about Trent Pierce? Is he going to make it? It's hard to say. Tigers supposedly are one over the salary limit, the scholarship limit, I should say. I guess, again, I'm kind of putting my hands out here confusingly, because what is the scholarship limit anymore? Does it actually matter? Could Caleb Grill just get $28,000 from NIL this year and be on scholarship? Who the heck knows? I don't pay a lot of attention to those numbers these days. What I do pay more attention to is the realistic amount of guys on the team who think that they should be playing, because at a certain point, that's the question with Jordan Butler and Trent Pierce, is are they willing to sit around and not play very much next year? Because whether they improve a lot or not, it seems like that was looking more than likely for both of those young men, although Butler, really considering his position, had probably more of a path to obvious playing time than Pierce at this point. All of this is to say that now that Butler is gone, obviously Connor Vanover graduated. Who is going to protect the rim and get rebounds for Missouri at this point? Well, I think Mark Mitchell certainly brings some of that, but to expect that he's going to be your only interior presence is probably unrealistic. Then you've got Peyton Marshall, who is certainly a true center, but he's also a true freshman. So how much can you totally trust a true freshman in that spot? It's hard to remember a ton of true freshmen holding up at either the power forward or the center spot for Missouri in recent memory. Jeremiah Tillman did okay, certainly. He also committed 7 fouls per 40 minutes. So, there's going to be growing pains with big guys in particular. No doubt guards as well as true freshmen, but in particular, big guys take a little bit longer to develop typically. And especially when, a lot of these guys like Jordan Butler are 18 years old. He's suddenly 6'11" or whatever. How much of his life has he even spent as a 7-footer? Maybe a couple years at most. He still needs time to grow into his body and figure out how to use all of these long limbs and stuff. Spoken by somebody with a little bit of experience. Not quite that long, but you get the idea. My point is, this is part of the problem with American basketball right now, in my opinion. Listen, I'm good with Jordan Butler transferring. I understand why he did. At the same time, there's just a bigger discussion to be had here, which is, how do players develop anymore? How do American players best develop? Because it can't just all be being thrown into the fire. It can't just all be on the basketball court. A lot of development has to take place off of the court, and sometimes just sitting back and watching and learning from people who are better than you, and just, again, getting most of your development away from the court is actually a good thing. And in particular, the highest level of basketball, I promise you this, any team, any individual player too is going to reach his ceiling. It's got to be as a part of a team and a part of a bunch of teammates that you know what they're going to do. You know their thoughts inside and out. You know when they're going to cut, where they're going to cut, when they're going to pass it to you, how they're going to pass it to you, how they like a pass to be received and not received, etc., etc., etc. That's my worry with American basketball in general right now, and it certainly seems like that's something where the Europeans, for instance, have a leg up on America for whatever reason. That's a really long discussion for sure. But again, as a Missouri fan, I understand why Jordan Butler left. I really do. But it is sort of the downside of the transfer portal and all this stuff, which is, I just think development is really lost in basketball right now. Where does it come from if not college basketball? Because between high school and the NBA, there really is nothing else. And at a Mizzou baseball game this past weekend, a cool moment for a couple Missouri quarterbacks as Brady Cook threw out the first pitch to Sam Horn, and it really just showed me once again why I think Missouri is lucky to have a guy like Brady Cook, especially in this moment in time of 2024. I want to explain what I mean coming up here in just a little bit. But first, let's talk about FanDuel, because it's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball is in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. And you know what? I'm giving myself a victory on that Cardinals-Royals parlay the other day. I know the Royals got rained out, so technically the parlay was no action. But you know what? The Cardinals won the first leg, and the Royals won the next day. I'm going with a spiritual victory there. But regardless, what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and make your first bet an automatic win. It's FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So one thing about 2024, I think the North End Zone plans, the renderings that were put out there, I think surprised a ton of people, including myself, just in terms of how ambitious the Missouri Athletic Department is right now, especially on the football side of things. I think obviously the 2023 season, the success that happened there, the Missouri name, image, and likenesses laws, just a whole bunch of things are just coming together right now, and Missouri is pushing all of its chips into the middle of the table. As a fan, obviously, I love that, but that puts a lot of pressure on this 2024 football season. Well, I'll tell you this, I think we're in great shape in terms of leadership, not only with Eli Drinkwitz, but Brady Cook, the Missouri quarterback, as well. And I was sort of reminded of this as Brady put out on his social media this past weekend a video of him throwing out the first pitch to Sam Horn, of course, his teammate, fellow quarterback with the Tigers. Sam on the baseball team as well, sitting out the season with Tommy John surgery. But, you know, Brady, I should say, just put out a cool video, you know, them dabbing it up, and just Brady saying, hey, Sam Horn, one of my favorite teammates ever. He'll be back throwing soon enough and all that good stuff. And it might be easy for some people to be a cynic there and say, oh, well, that's easy for Brady Cook to say right at this moment. Well, I'll tell you this. I don't know Brady Cook, but I've talked to him a time or two just for a second. And, you know, I've seen enough from the outside looking in to know that Brady Cook is the same guy he's been through his entire time at Missouri. I'm pretty confident of that. All of the positives about Brady Cook, his natural leadership abilities, in my opinion, and just the fact that he's obviously a good person, I think that very much shines through, and he's always been that guy. See, I've been noticing Brady Cook before he was the Missouri starter, when he was just sort of an afterthought as a high school player. When he arrived on campus at Missouri, people were, you know, Connor Bazelak was the starter, and people were waiting for Tyler Macon to pass him up in the depth chart. Of course, Sam Horn as well, whatever it might be. And Brady Cook went from a guy who was an afterthought to suddenly he was the starter at Missouri, to this place he had dreamed about being forever and ever and ever. And then suddenly he was injured in game 2. And suddenly 2022 didn't go quite as well as maybe a lot of Missouri fans hoped. And he spent a lot of that season and a lot of that offseason hearing the whispers and the chatter about, hey, is Brady Cook good enough? Are we sure he's an SEC quarterback? Are we sure he has the arm strength? Blah, 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 blah. So he went through all of that only to persevere and have a great 2023 season along with all of his teammates, 11-2, Cotton Bowl, the whole deal. So now here's a guy who, again, here's why I'm confident with Brady Cook. He's still the same guy. He's still the same natural-born leader, in my opinion, that he's always in, a quietly confident guy. And here's the thing. Here's two things. This is kind of my made-up rule here. A couple things that all successful people have in common, no matter how you define success. Number one, they're able to delay gratification. In other words, work really hard, rep, practice over and over again, and get results down the road. And they're also able to push through discomfort. And in Brady Cook's case, and in everybody's case, but in this example, it's about Brady Cook. In his case, he didn't just have to push through physical discomfort in terms of rehabbing his injured shoulder, his surgically repaired labrum. That was a physical toll, and just the physical toll of football in general and all the training that goes through that. But also pushing through the discomfort of having a lot of Missouri fans, a significant portion of the fan base, turn on him. Emotionally, he had to push through all of that as well. And you saw last season after the K-State game, he admitted it'd be nice if some more fans started believing in me a little bit. So even as quietly confident as I believe Brady Cook is as a human being, as much of a natural-born leader as he is, he's still a, 21, 22-year-old man that has feelings and bleeds red just like any of us. So I think the fact that not only has he persevered personally and pushed through all of that, that just has to give him tremendous confidence in himself for this 2024 season. But believe you me, all of his teammates have noticed this as well. Luther Burden has noticed this. Believe me, there's a reason Luther Burden calls Brady Cook a dog. It's not just because he says nice things about his teammate, and Luther Burden's a good teammate too. And while I believe all of that is true as well, I think he's speaking the absolute truth. I think he's seen what Brady Cook has gone through, seen him personally persevere through all the naysayers and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure Luther Burden, after his true freshman season, probably felt like he heard a few naysayers as well. So I feel like they have a real bond, those two in particular, Burden and Cook, both being St. Louis guys, all that good stuff. But regardless, again, I just think a great example of perseverance and ultimately, again, like I said, push through discomfort and delay gratification. If you're able to do that, man, you can really have some big dividends at the end of it. I think Brady Cook is going to cash in this season. I really do. All those tough times he's been through, all of his teammates, the coaching staff, the fans like me, we've all noticed, and we can't wait to see what Cook and this team can do in 24. I think we're in great shape in terms of leadership at the very least. So, you know what? Hopefully I've led you through a decent podcast here today. Join me here all week on Locked On Mizzou. There's just apparently going to be a ton of Missouri football and basketball commitments happening. And, of course, the NFL draft is this week. I mean, really, there's almost too much to talk about. But, hey, that's good for me. It's good for you, too. Hopefully you'll join me all week right here on Locked On Mizzou.